Who would pay $1 million to have me killed? Oh dear me. I'm terribly sorry. The 4th generation Mercedes C-Class Estate, also known as the S205. It's Mercedes-Benz best-selling model in this country. But is it any good? Should you care? Why, let's find out, shall we? Mercedes, los geht's!
As if we don't have to wipe away the tears. From time to time we wouldn't lie. And here we are, we'll never be the same. And on the screens of our lives flash words of good songs that we've not yet sung. And we're not worried about the future, and we're not guilty about the past.
So welcome to this special episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. Today I'm in my mother's 2017 Mercedes-Benz C200 Sport Estate with the 9G Tronic automatic transmission. Before we get into detail about the lovely 205 series Mercedes-Benz C-Class, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, to like this video and to leave a comment below. It all very much helps us out and allows us to make these episodes better and to make them faster. I must say thank you to my mother, of course, for lending me the car today. So thanks, Mother. Father. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class was first launched in 1993 and it replaced the very successful 190 and 190E series of cars. This generation is known as the W205 series for the saloon, the S205 for the estate, the C205 for the coupe and the A205 for the cabriolet. For the purposes of this review, we'll be concentrating on the estate models, although I mentioned some of the engines that are available in the saloon too. The base model C-Class of this generation, when they were launched in 2014, was a 1.6 litre turbocharged engine with 156 horsepower, back for C180. That was available with a manual gearbox, a 6-speed, although that's a very rare thing to see. The other engine, like this one, is a C200, and this has 180 horsepower. This was the actual base model for the estate cars. The C180 wasn't only available as a saloon. The C200 was also available with the 4MATIC four-wheel drive system. I've actually driven one of those. It was an AMG line car, and I wouldn't say it adds particularly anything to performance or anything like that. When the 2018 facelift came for these cars, the 2-litre turbocharged engine in this car was replaced with a 1.5 litre engine and a mild hybrid system. That generates about 185 horsepower. It's probably more economical and everything like that. Next is the C300. That develops about 260 horsepower, although I believe that's only a 2-litre engine. Then you step up to the C43. That's a 3-litre V6 twin turbo engine, but it's 376 horsepower. Above that is the C63. That's a V8 engine, and that develops around 480 horsepower. And then right at the top of the range, there's the C63S, and that is 510 horsepower. Both those cars, I believe, are standard 4MATIC four-wheel drive. There's also a C300 EQ, a sort of plug-in hybrid version. That develops around 250 to 300 horsepower. Can never remember exactly how much. There are also diesel versions of the plug-in hybrid and just straight diesels, but as usual on this channel, I can't tell you about those. The trim levels available on the S205 series C-Class estate were S, SE, Sport, like this one, and AMG line. And then there are all sorts of ridiculous special editions, like the Nightfall edition and the SE Executive, but we won't go into too much detail about those. The S is very rare, that's only available I think with the base engine of the C180, not available on the estates. The best trim level probably is the Sport, because it has things like the larger alloy wheels, the 17 inches in this car. It has the nice grille on the front, and actually all the facelifted cars look like this now. And it has front and rear parking sensors, which I think in a car of this size are pretty essential these days. One thing that I find perplexing about this car in terms of the safety systems are that it doesn't actually have blind spot monitoring or lane keeping assist as standard. Now, I think the facelifted version of this does, but for a car that in 2017 cost £35,000, you'd expect that to be standard. One of the weird things as well about the saloons is that the base Model S version doesn't come with folding rear seats. Obviously, this being the estate, it does. What we do get in terms of safety is 7 airbags and also a forward collision warning system, which I think does also have autonomous emergency braking. The forward collision warning system though in this car is absolutely the most annoying thing. The only time I've ever seen it work is when you're on the motorway and some idiot cuts up in front of you and then it goes off. There's something you could do about that. I mean, you have to put the brakes on and things, but it normally comes in about 5 seconds after he's cut it in front of you. It's like, well, I know he's there. I just saw him. He's right in front of me. You don't need to remind me. It also has a sort of attention recognition system, probably known as well as Tyler's recognition, and you know that is also very annoying. I don't recommend it particularly, but you know, these days that's what you need in one of these cars, because that's what the market demands. In terms of fuel economy, I might touch upon this a little bit later as well, but the kind of figures for this C200 are around 45 miles per gallon, maybe even much as 50 actually in some ways. The post-facelift cars I think are slightly more economical with that mild hybrid system and only a 1.5 litre engine, but the most I've ever got out of this car on a very long journey to the Peak District is about 44 miles per gallon, and that was driving very gently in the economy mode and just using the cruise control. I don't think 50 miles per gallon in this car is really achievable unless you are set at a constant 56 miles an hour and you don't indulge in any exuberant driving at all. Obviously, if you really want economy, then you can go for a plug-in hybrid or diesel, but I'm not allowed to talk about that, am I? Most variants of the 205 series C-Class come with this system whereby use this little button down here, it puts you into the various different driving modes. There is Eco, Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus and Individual. I tend to leave the car in Eco because that gives the best economy, and you know, Tweed Jacket Reviews is not really the most dynamic shows in terms of driving, although as you saw at the start of the review I did get this car sideways. But you can go into Sport and Sport Plus and get a bit more power. I remember doing some kickdown on the motorway and absolutely burying my foot in the floor, and it really did shift. 0 to 60 in this car is about 7.8 seconds, and the top speed is in excess, I think, of 130 miles an hour. Bear in mind, there's so many other engines that you can get that are even faster. This is probably for me, all I'd ever need. Certainly the one I would choose. One of the things I don't like about this car, though, is that if you put it in anything other than the sport setting for the steering, it's just too light. It's far too light. It's got no feeling really either at all. The dynamic capabilities of a BMW 3 Series really are far better than this. I know it's got rear wheel drive, but it doesn't seem to really benefit from it. It feels no better in many ways than something like, I don't know, got Volkswagen Golf. Not that the Golf is a bad car, they handle well, but it just doesn't really seem to benefit from the extra sophistication engineering. There are 3 different suspension settings for the 205 series C-Class. The S and SE have the most comfortable setting, but that really does result in a lot of body lean. The sport models like this have a slightly lowered suspension, and they do have the same kind of spring rate, so it's quite comfortable. It's not too firm, unlike the AMG line. And the AMG line really is not a car I would ever choose. It has a very dark interior. It has a very, very firm ride, and because the chassis of this car, unless you're looking at the AMG proper models, isn't the most sporty, it's really not adding very much to it, apart from the look of it and the dark interior. So I'd recommend this mid-range sport model. And also the look of the car is, in my opinion, better just with the more standard 17-inch wheels like this one has. One of the things that is a bit strange about this particular engine, and I don't know if this is the same for the facelifted car, if my mother does choose to replace this car with one of those, then maybe we'll see. But it's not the most refined engine. It's not very characterful or refined. So we're accelerating here up to a 60-mile-an-hour limit on this little road near Winchester. And certainly plenty of urge, even with the economy mode on the drive selector, but not much character. And Mr. Richardson, who I've been filming with today, although he's not in the car with me because you know we're in this funny lockdown period, he said the car sounded like a diesel, and it kind of does, even though it's a petrol. It sort of sounds like it, and it's a bit a shame that a car like this doesn't have a more refined engine note. Now when you're inside it, the cabin insulation is so good to the extent that you don't really notice or hear it, but I think really for the amount of money you pay for a car like this, then that could be a concern. One of the things that does annoy me about this car is that because it's on a finance deal, and it's one of the first cars I ever sourced actually in my independent vehicle consultant career, is how expensive the main dealer servicing is. And under the finance agreement with Mercedes-Benz, it is absolutely necessary to go to the main dealer. You haven't really got a choice. Now, if your car's out of warranty, you're not in a finance agreement, then by all means go to the independent Mercedes specialist, because you will save so much money. I've just put this car in for its 3-year service and MOT, and it's going to cost £550. Change the oil and filters, and you know, probably the cabin filter and air filter and things. And they actually have charged me for a loan car, or I've charged my mother. I mean, I'm not paying for this. I mean, she is, but it just is a bit annoying. On my Seat and many other cars, even if you're in a finance agreement, if you want to go to an independent VAT registered dealer, you can. And this one, no, you have to go to the main dealer and suffer the pain every single year. Now, of course, you can get prepaid servicing plans on a Mercedes-Benz, but it really is worth thinking about. The other thing is the cost of the car in the first place. It was £35,000 new. An equivalent car now is about £39,000. They have gone up a bit. but because of the discounts that are available on these cars, and they are pretty hefty from new, and maybe on the used market this car would probably sit in the sort of mid-teens in terms of the price. We paid about 27 for this one back in 2017, which I thought was a reasonably good deal. I have to say, out of the Audi A4, the BMW 3 Series, the Jaguar XE, and this C-Class, this is a strong contender for me, just because of, I think, who I am and the more relaxed demeanour I like to adopt, not being the sportiest driver in the world. Although I do find the rear a little bit cramped. And as a matter of fact, let's go and pull up and take a look at this car's more practical side. With the gear lever and the handbrake lever on the right hand side of the steering column, I can't dramatically pull the handbrake on or put it neutral, but you know, there we go. So that was the comfortable and sophisticated S205 or W205 Mercedes C-Class on the road. Let's now look at this car's more practical side by having a look in the boot. As you can see, all S205 Mercedes-Benz C-Class Estates come with electric boot opening, which is very handy. This being the sport trim, we've got these terrible fake exhausts. We'll skip over that though. We've also got this non-slip mat from a 1989 Volvo 240 Estate my mother used to own, but it's been cut up over the years because this boot is significantly smaller than on a Volvo 240. It's only about 490 litres, which is, for the record, 60 litres less than my Seat Toledo. Disappointing. As you can see, my mother is a lady of exquisite taste. We've got our luxury mineral water in here, as well as a Mercedes branded first aid kit and the lucky walnut key. In a C-Class Estate of this generation, we've got these very good hooks for shopping bags, 12-volt socket of course. We've also got this lovely Mercedes-Benz boot mat there. If we lift this up, then we haven't got a spare wheel. We do have luggage net though, air compressor for the tyre inflation kit. I don't like tyre inflation kits, but that's just what happens on modern cars. Probably space for a space saver if you wanted one, and all sorts of other detritus as a family would have these days. Right then, let's shut this tailgate again because I just like doing it, and take a seat in the back. So stepping into the back, one of the things I don't like about this car is the lack of rear space. I'm not very tall, I'm only 5'11", and my head is right up against the roof because of this panoramic sunroof in the car. This is my driving position as well, and because I've had to put the car's manual and other paperwork here because the glove box is too small for it, I've really got not much knee room. If I take these out, you'll see actually that it's improved it a bit, but it's not as good as, say, something like, I don't know, my Seat Toledo. It's all right, but my knees are sort of a bit of against here. My feet do go underneath, but overall, I don't think this is a suitable car for carrying 4 tall adults in comfort. So if I put these back so I don't lose them, actually this Artico leather fabric that's in here, Artico leather is standard on all the 205 series of C-Class. It is a nice colour, I really like it. Although I would prefer this portion as well to be in this colour, but you can't have everything. The pockets are elasticated, they're quite big, they hold a lot of things. I'm disappointed there's no 12-volt socket in here, there really should be one, but you do get these vents, and the Isofix covers are the best I've ever seen. You think you've broken them by pushing them here, and they go behind the little bar, but if you just flick that out, then they come back. Absolutely fantastic design, really intelligent, much better than what Volkswagen do. If you want to fold the seats, it's really easy. You just pull this little lever here, hope you get out of the way, and there we go. The belt buckle doesn't actually snag on anything. Nice flat load floor. A little bit heavy though if you want to push it up, because it doesn't retract by itself, you've got to push it. And if you open that up, it's all felt lined in here, it's lovely. Lots of space in there for chapsticks or whatever you want to do. A couple of cup holders that just come out like that, typically German. And it is quite nice. If you were a little bit shorter than me, or you had a short driver, bear in mind my mother's 5'3", so if I'm sitting behind her I don't really have a problem. It's actually quite luxurious. It does remind me of the smaller S-Class, which is no bad thing at all. One thing I do like about this car is the soft touch door tops and this nice aluminium or fake aluminium here with the speaker grills. Nice kind of Artico leather on the door pulls. One thing I do think though, and I'll mention this when we go into front as well, I think the door pulls should be here and not there. It just, when you reach out to get out of the car, you sort of go here and you can't find it, so you have to reach down here. That's one of the ergonomic compromises of this car makes, but you do have quite a large door bin. In fact, the door bins in this car in the back are bigger than most cars are in the front. There's an awful lot more space in the front. My headroom is a lot better. I do have the driving position in this car set right down, and you can fiddle to this to your heart's content. Electric seats in this sport model. Funnily enough, on the AMG line cars, which are more expensive than the sports, you don't get fully electric seats. You have manual forward and back adjustment, which is really strange. But this one, you've got the little sort of bolster at the front. You can move in and out, which I like. I put that back a bit. We've got memory seats. My mother has one, I have two, because she's shorter than me. We've got electric steering adjustment, although I think Mercedes really should have sorted all this out, because we've got 3 stalks here in really close proximity, and if you're not careful, it's really easy to put a wrong one and engage the cruise control, the wipers, or the electric steering wheel adjustment when you don't want to. I think that's a very bad design choice. I mean, you have to move this gear lever fair enough to here, so you can't operate the wipers from this side, but they should have thought about that. I think on the more modern cars Mercedes do, they do have cruise control on the steering wheel, which I think is a lot safer. For the first time on Tweed Jacket Reviews, I'm actually going to have to read from my secret mission documents, because the number of places where they build this car is absolutely ridiculous. It's built in 9 different countries, and I think 10 factories if you count the Mercedes-Benz US engine plant. So it's built in Germany, Brazil, India, South Africa, China, United States, Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia. That's pretty remarkable. I thought it was going to be maybe the United States and China and Germany, but you know, you learn something new every day. Whilst we're on the secret mission documents, I know I've said the manual won't go in my glove box. Let's see if this goes in. Oh, just about. Thank you, Mercedes-Benz. Being a 2017 car, as opposed to the later facelift car which came out late 2018, this is the Mercedes-Benz command system. If I switch the car on here, we'll see that it takes a while to start up, which is kind of annoying, but you know, there we go. And it tells me not to be distracted by a traffic situation. This is the 7-inch version. The ones lower down the range were worse than this. Obviously, nowadays you can get a 10.5-inch widescreen thing, which gets rid of a lot of this bezel. I have muted the sound so it doesn't distract us. So one of the things that people often say is that the mouse and scroll wheel down here are not close to where the buttons are for switching to different modes, which is absolutely right. And also these buttons, they're really cheap and horrible. It's remarkable how nasty they are. You sort of push that and it's the sort of quality you expect to have in a Dacia Sandero, not a £35,000 Mercedes-Benz. I also find it very annoying, and this is something that other people who drive a lot of modern Mercedes-Benzes say too. If you want to skip through tracks on the audio player, for example, I've got my phone connected via Bluetooth and there is no Android Auto and Apple CarPlay until the facelift cars, and even then it costs £300. So you connect it up via Bluetooth and you want to skip a track. What you have to do is, if you've got the sat-nav running, you have to come into media and then use the scroll wheel to go back and forth, or use this button here. If you want to go back, the only way you can do it is using the scroll wheel. So if you're not on the media screen, you can't go back one track. And that's a very bad flaw. There's no controls here at all to do that. Why the MG3 that we used to have, which cost £10,000 new, had a button to skip back tracks, and this car, which cost £35,000 new, does not, I really don't know. So the sat-nav system, you can use this little mousepad thing to input destinations, like on, I don't know, an Apple Newton, if you remember those. It's a bit better than that, but really what you want is a touchscreen or something like that, or operate it from here, and you can't. You have to use the mouse pad or the wheel. I tend to use the wheel and just ignore this, apart from using the back button, because there is no back button apart from here. The MBUX system that comes on the facelift cars, and you know, my mother does what I think she's going to do and get a facelifted one of these. Then we can have a look at that later. But this is the command system, just one M, no, not two M's, one M, and it's actually one of the better sat-nav systems I've used. The one in my set later, which goes into all sorts of Volkswagen Group products, is definitely worse than this. This actually has some kind of traffic information on it. It has route guidance. It's very clear. This is really the only system I've ever used in any car with a sat-nav that would probably replace Android Auto for me. One of the things that you can do on a 205 C-Class is go into the driving mode selector. Now you've got a little scroll wheel down here. When you start the car, it's very annoying. If you're in eco mode, which I normally am when driving this car, it doesn't save that preference. It instead puts it into comfort mode for you. I think that's pretty annoying, but you know, never mind. So what we can do is go into the dynamic selection screen here by using the scroll wheel, and we can do individual preferences. So if I want to adjust for steering, then we can have a sport or a comfort setting on the steering. And to be honest, the sport setting is really the only one I'd ever use, because the comfort setting is so light that you can just drive the car with a little finger like this all the time. There's no feedback at all. If you perhaps had an AMG line trimmed car, if you went for the proper AMG ones, the steering would be a bit better. But in this sort of standard trim car, the Sport, that is a little bit of an omission. Of course, you can fiddle around with the engine powertrain settings, and the majority of these cars come with a 7 or 9 speed automatic gearbox. This is a 9 speed called the 9G Tronic, and it's a very smooth gearbox. From a driving section, you would have seen that most of these cars come with an automatic gearbox. There are very few which are manuals, and I don't even remember if anybody really ever specifies the manuals on the facelifted cars at all. But this is the 9 speed. It's very smooth, but what I have generally is Sport for the steering and Eco for the drivetrain settings, and Eco for the air conditioning settings, because the economy that you get in this car is a bit disappointing. It says it probably does 45 miles per gallon in the official figures, but really I've got 44 in the best case scenario, and really it's doing low 30s most of the time, which isn't really a concern for a low mileage driver like my mother. She drives about 5,000 miles a year, but if you really want economy, you're going to have to go for the plug-in hybrids or the diesels. One thing I don't like about this car as well is these buttons, which are really small. They look nice and they're nice quality, unlike the ones here, but they're all the same size apart from the menu one in the middle, and that menu one's nothing to do at all with the heating and ventilation controls. That's to do with the main menu of the car. So it gets really confusing. It's taken me 3 years really to get used to these controls in this car. People will say that the Audi and BMW systems are better, and they probably are, to be honest, but you do get used to it, and if you're used to a Mercedes, then that's what you'll like. We've got 3 air vents here, which is a lovely touch. They look really nice, they feel really nice. And then we've got this area down here, which holds my mobile phone. You can hold 2 massive flasks in here, or cups. We might get a shot of a Furious Driving mug in here, which is available at the Redbubble store or for the Furious Driving website. 12-volt socket in here as well. For the manual car, this is where the gear lever would be, so I presume you lose the cup holders. If we go back a bit here, we'll get this another huge cubby hole in here, which in somewhere in here is buried an SD card slot and 2 USB points, which is brilliant. It means you can charge your phone and really not worry about it. We've got all kinds of things in here. It's a very practical car in terms of the spaces to put stuff. The door bends are quite large. The glove box takes my secret mission documents, as you've seen, and it's very comfortable in here. I very much like it. This isn't perhaps a driver's car, but it is a car to be driven in. This being the pre-facelift car, we've got the leather wrap steering wheel. This is Napa leather, being a sport. The steering wheel buttons feel very nice, but after 15,000 miles, this mute button's already wearing out, which is a bit of a concern, but never mind. Automatic gearbox shift pedals in here, which I thought originally these were only on AMG line cars, but actually this was standard for this particular year. Gear selectors over here, and the handbrake lever is down there, as it was on a very, very old, say W205 Mercedes in the 1960s have a release like that. The ignition button is just there. It's got keyless entry, like most modern cars do, which I don't particularly like, but never mind. And ahead of me, we've got this central screen in colour, which you can just sort of scroll down and look at various things, such as the miles you've done, the charge. There is a very small kind of mild hybrid system in this car, even if it's not called a mild hybrid. There's like a gliding mode or something where the car's not using any power. I think the engine's virtually off, and it will see you with a little charge. So if you go downhill a lot and are gentle, then that's good. There's an eco display as well that will tell you about your success or failure at driving. The fuel economy is not looking very impressive, but we've got an average of 32 miles per gallon from the last time a car was serviced, which was 8,000 miles ago. Being a car that's a pre-facelift, we haven't got digital dials or anything here, but I don't like digital dials anyway. I think this looks very classy, but the Speedo is a little bit small. So all of the S205 C-Class estates come with a reversing camera, which you need, I'd say, in this car. The parking sensors, which are standard on this trim level front and rear, they are a bit weird though, because they only really work when you get really, really, really close to something, and it's a bit unnerving, because if you drive other cars with parking sensors, you're used to using those, you would expect them to go off a little bit sooner. So when you get really close to something, you see you might hit it in the camera, then suddenly they do come on. But just be aware of that the first time you drive one of these, and make sure the warning buzzer is on if that's a concern for you. The car does have full collision warning. It does have an attention assist system, both of which I find very annoying. We've got automatic lights and wipers in this car. The wipers are controlled from the same stalk as the indicators, which is something you get used to in a Mercedes. We have got cruise control with a speed limiter, although resuming the cruise control in this car is surprisingly difficult. I never have quite worked out how that works. The full visibility is quite good. You do feel very low down, and overall this car isn't particularly easy to get in and out of in comparison with a lot of cars that aren't even SUVs, which I find interesting really, but just the way that it is. The bonnet is quite long, and they haven't got a little Mercedes-Benz logo on the front, little 3-pointed star, so you can't judge that, but you have got the front parking sensors with the sport trim, and this is the one obviously I would recommend. And you can drop the headrest there in the centre. I don't think it's an electric system, it's a manual system, so it's not too bad. I love though in this car the panoramic roof, and we can adjust the blind with this button here, which gives a different lighting, and then push it back And if we go all the way, the roof will actually open slightly. There we are. It's not very far, it's a tiny little bit, but you know, it does a little bit of ventilation, and if you're on a motorway, that might be quite nice. Just close that so we don't get any rain in. This is one of the main reasons I think my mother bought this car, was because of this panoramic sunroof and the light coloured interior, and certainly it looks very luxurious and very lovely indeed. Right then, what do I think of the 205 series C-Class Estate? In this colour, this is a beautiful car. If you choose a light coloured interior, it looks wonderful. If you choose the sport trim, then you have the right balance between handling and comfort. Is it a driver's car? No. Is it cheap to run? No. But is it very satisfying to own? Yes, it is. Oh, dear me, I'm terribly sorry. At $1 million a contract I can afford to, Mr. Bond. You get paid peanuts, a hearty well done from Her Majesty the Queen, and a pittance of a pension. Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. My name is Joseph Lloyd, and I find cars for people on a professional basis. To find out more, please visit my website or my Facebook page. Links are in the description below. Thank you.